Hi, good morning. It's a wonderful Friday morning, and you are most welcome again to our STEM series. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. My name is Estella Hilda Anaman, and I'm the coordinator for American Corner Aboba. I'll be moderator for this session. So I'm information about the United States through book collections, internet access, events and activities for everyone. So today we are going to discuss a very important topic, which is utilizing technology to create your global brand and influence. Facilitating this session is Prosper Tony. He is the partnership analyst and founder for ProsRight Foundation. So Prosper Tony is a consummate change maker, a speaker, a research and transformational leader who believes in using digital tools and storytelling to change social narratives. So he serves as a partnership analyst and founder of ProsRight Foundation, an SDG-focused organization on education and a pioneering 2022 Community Engagement Exchange alumnus, a U.S. State Department fellowship designed for young global leaders leading in public, private, and non-sector, addressing the world's biggest challenges. So in 2017, he was recognized by Impact Squared UK, now Dalberg Media, as part of the 100 Faces of Impact Fellow in the philanthropy category and selected as the youngest delegate for the Common Purpose Africa Venture Cross-Boundary Leadership in 2019. So he's an alumnus of the Global Shapers Community, Accra Hub, and a member of the Project Management Institution, Ghana chapter. So during the session, please type all your comments or questions in the comment box below, and they'll be well addressed. Thank you for staying with us. And now I'll hand it over to Prosper Tom. Yes, as we wait for our facilitator to just join in, please let us know where you're joining us from, whether you're joining us from, America or any part of Ghana. Just put that in the chat window, and we want to hear from you. So our facilitator will just join us in a very brief moment. Thank you. Also, just about the topic, you can just tell us what you know about, technology. How have you used it in your network? How have you been able to use technology? Has it been of help to you in branding? Have you been able to get any deals? It's popular in our times now where we have influencers. Okay, so our facilitator has just joined in. So, hello, Prosper.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, please, we can.
Hi, Estella, do you hear me?
Yes, please, we can hear you.
Okay. So,
would you prefer I share your slides from here?
please do.
Okay. All right then. Thank you. So just, we just start in a bit. So let us know where you're joining us from in the chat window, and we're excited to hear from you.
Right. Thank you all for joining. Using technology to create your global brand is today's session. So making sure that the tool does not fail us. It's always good to have a backup plan. So we're happy that you join us. Like Estella rightly said, we'd like to know where you're joining us from. So feel free to drop that in the chat box. Right on the screen, we'll be projecting my presentation to you, and then we kickstart.
Prosper, please, can you see the slides? Hello, Prosper.
Okay. Hi, I hear you.
Yes, can you see the slides?
No, it's not up yet.
Okay, just a minute.
Okay. Right, I can see that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you
Please
very
go ahead.
much. All right. Thank you very much for stepping in for that. Technology is a tool that we need to harness. My presentation is going to be focused on how to use a technology tool to harness your global brand. My name is Prosper, and I will be speaking about tech. So tech, as we all know, is a tool that we use to solve problems. Next slide. Technology has been with us for many years. There has been a number of evolution in the tool that we use in terms of what problems technology have been designed to solve, what kinds of changes that need to be made to such tools to ensure that whatever you're working on comes out very well the way you want it. Technology has always been with us for many years. So currently we'll be looking at some of the new ways that you can harness the tool of technology to enhance your global brand. I've noticed that there are a number of times people want to communicate their brand, but they have challenges with it. But there is a way out in terms of how to put your brand in perspective and how to put that out there for people to see. Next slide. One way that we can do that is to be able to put together the whole idea that we want to communicate. So there is a tool, the technology tool, then there is the means to which you want to communicate that to. Many people want to start doing something, but they don't know how to go about it. Technology, as I've mentioned, is an application that you use, a knowledge that you have to solve a problem around you. The goal is to reduce challenges that you find around. You want to improve on healthcare, you want to improve on education, you want to improve on specific need, climate change within your community. So you need to have the tool to be able to do that. The next thing you want to look at is the kinds of technology that we have. We have various types of technology, but focused on our discussion today, we'll be looking at education technology, what it means. Education technology primarily means that having tools that are addressing needs within the education sector. You may have heard of different tools that we use to help people who want to learn a particular skill, let's say science, but they don't have the tools. Someone within the education technology space designs a tool that helps young people or anyone who wants to learn about science to do that. So it could be a kit. Then we have food and product technology. This one is mainly looking at how to optimize the food process system. So you design a technology purpose for that. We're looking at biotechnology. This aspect is more focused on how to turn waste into something useful. Then information technology will be much on making sure that information is disseminated through whatever means you want it to be and people getting access to it. And also ensuring that there is nothing related to cyber issues coming up. People don't use the information anyhow. Operational technology will be much focused on how to optimize processes. So you work in a factory, you want to cut down the number of time you kind of produce things. So such technology tool makes it easier. Then the last one would be the AI, so artificial intelligence technology that aids in helping out. The next set of things that you will be learning about would be to have a session of we understanding why these tools help. We've seen different kinds of logos before, but I want to communicate this to you from the beginning that these logos do not just stand for the businesses. They have different things they communicate. So they want to promote the business. They want to let people remember them anytime they come to them. So you see different logos. You see BMW, you see FedEx, you see Adidas. My favorite logo here would be FedEx. FedEx had something unique about them. if you look keenly into FedEx, you will see that FedEx has an X somewhere. This logo has been designed specifically to stick something in your mind. FedEx goal is to transport, items globally, whichever part of the world you are, you can receive that item. And that is what FedEx stands for. FedEx has the concept design that is supposed to stick in your mind throughout and through. Now let's talk about the next one, which is MasterCard. You may have seen MasterCard on your debit card stuff, but MasterCard does other program or other project on the side that helps businesses or young people who are seeking skills. Currently, MasterCard has a foundation over a number of years supporting young people in that field with their programming. We now need to look at branding on a broader scope. So branding, as we know, is a way to communicate your brand. Branding, as we know, is a way to communicate your brand. And you want to communicate your brand by ensuring that you have the right information. You want to ensure that you have the right resources that keeps you going. You want to ensure that your brand is focused on communicating what you want to disseminate, the information you want to disseminate out. I don't know how many of you have had the time to test your brand in terms of knowing what your personal brand looks like, because we want to make sure your brand is global. People get to see you. How do you start? How do you test your brand? So here's what we are going to do. We want to fully get into it, make sure that your brand is communicated. So let's move to the next slide on brand. So that link, we want to see branding. So the branding is a process of creating strong, positive perception of a company. So it could be a company, it could be yourself. You want to communicate that not just through logo design and then your mission statement and all of that. You want to have all of them in sync so that your process goes well. Next slide. Currently, we have seen different brands. So we want to test your pulse. Just when you click the link, it gives you something, but I'll do that towards the end. But basically, how does your brand look when you're out there? Someone says that their brand is innovative. Someone also says that their brand is creative and all of that. So you want to make sure that you have a brand that stands out. You have a brand that people can relate to. But the most important thing is you have to communicate your brand. You need to be authentic when you are communicating your brand. Then we look at the various types of brand, because that is very key. Next slide. We're looking at the various type of brand. We are looking at a brand that stands out. So this young man, let's go back. This young man, I'll talk about him since we're looking at how to be global with your brand. All he does, his name is Danny Wonders. He's a photo storyteller. All he does is he puts together pictures using his phone. Technology is in play here, ensuring that the tool that he has is being used for impactful work. Danny Wonder takes its time to curate those contents of wherever he goes. He puts it out there for people to get to know about. And this is using a tech tool to reach a lot of people. The next one would be Ivy Bally. So Ivy Bally is someone who does so much work in the STEM space. So if you are someone who was looking at working in the science, technology, engineering space, this young woman has curated a number of her work over the years, raising young people, training them, providing them with the tools, the resources that they need. And that is something that we want to communicate. Currently does some work with Microsoft. So putting your work out there, creating that brand that people will remember is a good way to be able to have your impactful work out there. Now we look at the next person, who also is the Dex technology team. This team mainly provide tech tools. They use the resources to provide tech tools that makes it easier for people to fully engage. Why they want to ensure that the level of studying science, technology, engineering related courses are met. So in communities, providing the science kits for young people to learn. The next person would be Larissa Profi, uses storytelling to communicate her brand in terms of empowering young women to be involved in science, technology, engineering field. She does that through a brand called Levers and Hills. Through storytelling, she communicates that brand fully, writes about how she studied engineering-related program in the past and working within a sector that supports young people thoroughly through. We want to go further to understand how your different brands keeps you on your toe. So we'll move to the next one to look at the types of brands. We have various forms of brand, but we want to focus on this key one. We have personal branding, corporate branding, product branding, and service branding. Because we want to ensure that you don't put out information anyhow, you want to go by learning what each of them means. So personal brand talks about your personality. On our next slide, we are looking at what personal brand looks like. So personal brand is about you putting out your content, processing of your process of creating your identity for yourself. How do you want people to know you? What do you want people to identify when they see you? You develop that by creating a well-defined and consistent look. So it could be your outlook, it could be the information you share, it could be anything that has to do with your well-being. Let people know you for what you stand out for. Everything about you should be in sync. That is very important. The next brand we want to look at is your corporate brand. If you are a company that you're working, what strategies are you putting in place to promote your brand? Quite recently, I saw online that there was this expedition ongoing that's Accra to London, and eventually they went on an expedition. It became a news, and people got to know so much about them. There are different corporate vehicles that were used, or a brand that was used in that. People are talking about it. This is another way of getting your product out there. This is another way of communicating your brand properly. So that is one aspect. Corporate brand will be looking at the strategies that they put in place to ensure that your corporate brand is well seen. You are reaching out to your target audience. The next one will be looking more about product. So when we talk about KFC, it has to do with food. When we talk about Chicken Man, Pizza Man, it has to do with food. When we talk about any brand that is a product-related brand, it sticks in your mind. That is something that you want to remember. So product branding also has a strategic combination of the design, messaging, and all of that. We'll move to the next one. Service brand. Service brand also looks at the service that you're into. If it is banking, what services are you providing, and how are people really getting access to that information? And then if you are into a management consulting firm, what are the key problems you're solving with your brand? That should be standing out thoroughly. Now we want to look at how you're able to communicate your brand, because you want to understand what goes on. I noticed per an analysis I made, about 5 out of 10 people don't communicate their brand because they still have that imposter syndrome. So if it's personal brand, they are unable to communicate it. They feel they haven't done so much. Then there's also the thought of them not knowing how to use the tools. So then you need to learn how to use the tool. 5 people also are able to communicate their brand because they've learned so much. They want to connect with different people, individual, to inspire or to get some sort of partnerships. Now we look at storytelling, and that is how we are able to get on this market trend. 2023 is telling us, I know most of you might be on TikTok. You might have seen TikTok videos here and there, but this service, you can see different various forms of brand in here. You see Amazon, you see Apple, then you see Tesla, all of the brands in the rank per the 2023 market trend. Apple is somewhere in the middle. Amazon is on the top. So you want to see what these brands are doing. How are they improving on their product and services to meet demands out there? Now we want to tell a story. You might have heard of Nike. Nike is a product that most of you might have when you see that check mark. This particular product wants to stick in the minds of people by ensuring that they tell a story. So storytelling is one way for you to create that brand that will stick in people's mind. You're using the technology to get people to understand what you're doing and how to get there. The power of storytelling is undisputed, and that is true. You want to connect to people, you want to nurture, you want to tell a story, you want to reach, and you want to have an outcome. Now we'll look at the 5 steps, the 5 steps that will help you tell a good story. The first one is your stories have the ability to build and strengthen communities. So your story type, first one is you have to tell the original story. Where does it start from? You create a context on why that particular story exists. You must be factual. It should be emotional. It should also have a form of ideological truth. So why are you doing it? What do you expect to get at the end of it? A typical example you probably might have seen is people setting up GoFundMe. So let's say for the purpose of today's presentation, you set up a GoFundMe to support STEM education. STEM is science, technology, engineering education, providing 100 students with laptops in a particular town. You compel your storytelling, put it out there, and you reach out to the right audience to fully understand what you're doing. The next one, we're looking at the second approach in storytelling. Your value story, you share your values, you shine a light on your culture. If your value is very authentic throughout your storytelling, people know you and they know what you stand for. So the second example is value storytelling. Tell your story based on the value you have. Let people connect with you based on that. The third one is being able to let people see through you. The third story type in storytelling, which is going to be seen shortly, is being vulnerable and being who you are. One thing I've seen when it comes to being able to connect to global brands or global opportunities is that you need to tell compelling, vulnerable stories, and you don't make it up. You tell it properly so people can know about what you're doing and how they can connect with you on that level. This is one way to use the tools to reach a more global brand, especially if you're looking at applying for workshops that speaks to your work and let people remember you for what you do. The next one is the way that you communicate, the story type 4, which is going to be on the screen. The way you communicate your brand, you want people to really understand what your brand stands for. This is your personal storytelling. This could be about your business. This could be about your product. It could be about your service. You want to communicate that through storytelling. When people start to connect with you on your organization story, they would donate. They would understand that you need some sort of help throughout the process. We have a few more to go. The next one, we want to look at summarizing the concept, what we've really discussed, because you want to really communicate your brand fully to people. You need to be authentic in your storytelling. So the technology tool is there. You want to use the technology to harness that to tell your story. You want people to know about your brand. You want people to understand the way you're using technology to optimize the kind of problem you're solving, the kind of solutions you're providing for them. So based on what we've discussed so far, we looked at the way you want to tell story towards the end, because at the end of the day, you want your brand to be out there. So the 4 types of storytelling that changes perspective is the origin story. We looked about the value story. We looked at the vulnerable story and then personal story. Then you need to invest in learning a tech skill. So if you don't know how to design Canva, you can use that Canva tool to be able to, communicate your brand. Then the last one is you take your personal brand seriously and ensure you remain authentic through your brand. So I would like to end here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now, and I'll be happy to respond to them. Stella, if you can hear me.
Yes, Prosper, I can hear you. All right, thank you so much for that insightful session. So let's keep our questions coming about what it all means to use technology in, getting your influence out there. Okay, so just a question of my table, what challenges do organizations face when trying to utilize technology for global brand influence, and how can you overcome those challenges from your experience?
Right. So, first of all, you need to know the kind of problem you're solving. So you need to understand if you are connecting with an organization that is not based within your area, you need to understand the environment, how they communicate their brand within their space, so you can have that brand identity run throughout. If you are working in the nonprofit space or the CSO space, you also need to know what is required. If you're looking at fundraising within that space, how are you able to reach out to donors with the right resources or the right branding kits for them to understand what you need to sell? So you need to be aware of the different environment that you're trying to communicate your brand in, and make sure that you overcome some of that challenges that may come forth. That way you'll be able to communicate your brand properly.
Okay. All right, thank you for that answer. So about social media, in the times we are in, we have people who can say things in the bad light to get more clicks. Yes, and they still end up getting some, influence gigs and all that. What can you say about that aspect as well in terms of influence and branding?
Right. So I've noticed a lot of brands, or you could say loosely, that things trend when they go in the wrong tangent. So there are information that are out there. You need to make sure that you are having the right info out there. Most of the brands that do that want to ride on the popularity to get gigs, which is not the best way. I mean, I've been monitoring different brands that do that because they want to reach a wider audience. But there should be that authentic, like I mentioned, you need to be authentic in your brand storytelling. So anyone that wants to project their brand as a corporate person, as a person, you need to be authentic in your storytelling. You don't need to, make the figures so big in order for people to know. You don't need to say something really that is not there to get your word out there. So there is that thing that makes it difficult for people to even follow through when they find such info. So I would say that it's not a good way of communicating your brand. Be authentic in your storytelling. That way you can get people to jump on board whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Okay, so a follow-up question on that. So what would somebody who has been on that path do to change the narrative if they've used the wrong way to get more attention on social media, and they want to just, turn on a new leaf? What is the right way to create a new brand for yourself? What are some of the steps the person can take to make sure that that particular path will not come and hand them later?
Right. So, I mean, I take personal branding very seriously. I believe that it's sometimes the internet doesn't forget. It has info about you. And the best you can do is maybe disassociate yourself from that. So let's say you created a Facebook page that you use a false info and your name, and people find out. You need to just get out of that platform, create a new one. If you want to tell an authentic story now, you can now openly come out that I used to use this sort of tools, and now I want to be known for ABC. This is you coming out fully that my personal brand that you used to know is not what it is. So now it's something that I want to be authentic for. But know that if you put something out there which is on social media already, it will still be there. They will find out. I'm sure you've seen a number of them pop up. So you will still find all of that popping up as you get along. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that. So also with the question of cultural differences in terms of being on the global scale, how do you make sure that you are mindful of what you do so that you reach a diverse global audience? You don't end up offending somebody's, cultural difference in that regard.
Right. So the first thing is having that cultural sensitivity, being aware of yourself, especially if you enter a room that you have 5 people from different countries. Their perspective on different things matters to them. So you need to have that cultural sensitivity, be aware that you are not in the room alone. The way you wear something might be different from someone else. So even if you you want to communicate, you need to find out, how do you do this at your end? This is how we do it at our end. So have that cultural sensitivity, ask questions around that. And if you're collaborating, you need to know what will be the barriers if you have to move a step further to be involved. So that helps. And that has worked for me over the years. I've been able to use that through the process, and being able to connect with different partners, different individuals who want to do different things. You need to ask questions a lot. You need to be aware of their cultural differences, and harmonize that into your work.
Okay, so yes, with another aspect of reaching out to more people, talking about LinkedIn, how has, your personal experience, how have you been able to build up your LinkedIn profile, in terms of global influence?
Right. So I would say taking a day at a time to build. I was very consistent with building from the scratch. So I set up a profile, the LinkedIn profile, and anything I have done, if it's a volunteering activity I've done, I need to put it over and make sure that I share more about it. The more I did, the more I got noticed, and people would reach out that, okay, we see you doing this. We want to know more about it. And I'm able to do that. So my first step was to create the LinkedIn profile, put the right info that is there, very authentic information, because it could be verified. And if any organization wants to hire you, finds out that what you have on your LinkedIn or it's not authentic, then you'll be in trouble. So I personally invested so much in terms of being consistent, looking at what needs to be changed, taking on different skills that will add value to me, and then inputting that there. That's how I've got noticed by different brands or different organizations that I may have done some work with in the past. So in simple terms, setting up the LinkedIn profile, learning a skill, updating it, consistently writing stories about your experience. So if you've been to a workshop, you can talk about it. So someone who might see it in your feed would reach out to work with you.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing those tips. So with regards to that, isn't there any way that there is a part of being quite steered in just getting attention? How do you manage that part of the internal part of yourself, not just doing it because you want to showcase, to get more attention in that quote, but it's something really authentic? How do you manage that within yourself as, an individual in terms of personal branding?
Right. So like I mentioned during our presentation earlier, you need to be authentic. I see that a lot. Sometimes you hold back. The reason why people don't communicate their brand, sometimes they feel they've not done a lot. So you need to tell your story, but you need to have some level that you want to tell it. If you're working for a corporate brand that your role is marketing personnel, you will be in the faces of people, but you don't need to be obvious. So I would stress that whatever service, whatever product, whatever corporate work you do, or personal brand as well, what do you want people to know you of, and how consistently do you want to be out there? So you need to keep that at the back of your mind. The end goal is people should know you for what you do, the solution you bring, and they will remember you for that. But if it's just to create a buzz, some people dwell on that for their marketing strategy. So be authentic. I'll stress that again. Authentic means that you share your personal story, but being raw about it, depending on the audience you want to share with, and know that you don't need to you don't need to embellish it so much for people you need to come clean on what you're doing. So I would say that different people, different things works for them, but if you want to let your brand be out there to be seen, you need to be consistent in telling your authentic story. I'll stress that. Yeah. If it's let's say if you've sold bread, you've done this, that, you're working in a social enterprise space, and you want to communicate that, or you've done something that will help people understand your journey, put that out there, and you'll be able to connect to an audience that really wants to hear your journey.
Okay, so be consistent in everything that you do. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. So About tools, talking about tools, what do you believe are the most significant, tools that can bring impact in terms of branding in the coming years?
Right. So artificial intelligence is one of the technology tools that we've seen currently. Right now, if you want some form of information, you just click on Chat GPT, put in all the info you want. This is basic that we all need to know. You may not have to be a science geek to know about this tool, but if you are someone who wants to learn, you will be aware of the different tools that are available. So ChatGPT is a tool that you can use to learn a number of things. Then if you're a creative person, because you need to have a brand that communicates, I use Canva a lot to do my presentations and different things. So you can do some design tool using Canva. If you are an illustrator, you want to do some kind of mind map stuff. There are different tools for you to use to communicate your brand. It could also be a video. You're filming yourself. So your phone is a good tool to use because that is very handy. It's affordable. You just need to take the photos and then, do some editing. In the coming year, I see more, sophisticated tools, but making it much more easier for an average person to use. That is the thing. ChatGPT is already here, and it's been doing a good job for all of us, especially if you want some form of information, you key in and you get that. So I would say I expect more tools that will come, but we need to learn how to use the tools. Because if we don't learn how to use the tools, then we are not putting our brands out there. So that's what I would say.
Okay. So what about those who are, we have people who are comfortable with being behind the scene in terms of being behind their computer. How do you balance that in terms of maintaining connection with people physically and also using the tool, which is the digital tool, in terms of branding? How do you balance the two from your experience?
Right. So from my experience, what I've seen is that you need to have time management in whatever you do. So we know we have meeting tools like Zoom, Hangout, and Google Meet and all of that. If you are supposed to be in a meeting, you need to know at what time you need to be in that meeting. If you are supposed to be having a brainstorming session, you need to organize that at appropriate time so people can be involved throughout the process. So what has worked for me is to manage the time properly, because I know that at between 10 to 11, I need to be on a session and facilitate that session throughout. After that time, I need to meet a team to have a discussion, which may be a month, which may be a couple of hours, right? So you need to have time management tools around. You could schedule using Google Calendar to prompt you on what you should do at what point in time and when you should arrive and all of that. That could give you reminders to manage yourself properly and be able to work within the time frame that you have.
Okay, so time management is okay. So let's keep our questions coming. We have interesting comments from our participants. They are just giving their cheer on about the session, and it's been really, really insightful. So yes, going further, just to talk about your experience, more about your experience, what can you say as individuals in terms of corporate branding? You talked about logo not just being, the logo that you have is not just a brand. Can you touch more on that? Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, given the definition of branding, you need to have all the elements. So when we talk about Nike, you see Nike just a mark. When we talk about KFC, you see KFC brand. When you talk about DHL, FedEx, you know that it has its purpose, the niching and everything in there. So a lot of times, small businesses or even different organizations that may be coming up spend a number of time on their logo alone without communicating the vision or the mission of their business. When I started with the nonprofit Push Rights Foundation a few years ago as a youth group. The goal is to empower, inspire, and support young people, focus on the SDGs, providing them with access to opportunities. So you partner with different CSOs to deliver, you partner with different institutions to deliver, you come up with projects yourself to implement. So you should have that infused into your brand. You don't have to have a logo. Your logo alone shouldn't just come in. You need to have your mission statement. You need to have that cleared out. And this time around, different people have different ways of communicating it. So a brand could have their logo, everything. Then in terms of marketing it, they take a short video that sticks in the minds of people throughout the entire time. So logo is great, but we should spend time to, harmonize our mission statement, vision statement, what we stand for with the logo, so that when people see, they know, okay, this is a nonprofit, or this is service-oriented business, or this is a corporate, business. Yeah.
Okay, so regarding that, how have you been able to seep into the local community in terms of branding for people who may not know how to speak English and so forth? How have you been able to seep into this community to bring forth influence in that regard?
Right. So I did a bit of community engagements with, people. And most often, if you're going to a community that you're not familiar, you need to go with someone who understands the language, or you can also speak. You need to dress, like we talk about personal brand, how you dress, where you go, and how you communicate that. Because when they see you, imagine you wear suits and you go to the chief's palace, you guys are supposed to engage them, like meeting the chiefs, trying to have a local stakeholder engagement. And you now take it off and you're sitting on the ground. It doesn't communicate properly. So you need to have an understanding, like we talk about the cultural complexities. You need to be aware of where you're going, how you need to prepare yourself to meet the people. And it's okay to have someone who understands the language to interpret that for you, so you can communicate to the community members that you are meeting. So being self-aware is a great deal. It helps you navigate your way around that when you have to meet a particular community generally. So that's something I've been able to do, and I consistently do that. You ask questions about the community before you actually step foot over there.
Okay, that's a really good response. So talking about risk or pitfalls in terms of branding, what should one be cautious about in terms of relying heavily on technology? One example could be ChatGPT. People are heavily dependent on that now. How can those risks be mitigated?
Right. Like technology is supposed to harness and make processes easier. And since we've adopted technology, we just need to ensure that we kind of have that level playing field between being able to think on our feet and also using the tools. Because now the reliability, how we rely solely on technology, doesn't give us that opportunity to fully, think for ourselves a lot. So for instance, if you are working in a research field, or you're in academia, if you pick every information that you need for your assessment from ChatGPT, there is also another tool that is there to kind of, figure out where you pick from, especially if you don't reference where your information is from. So it's very important that we have a good balance between using the tools and readily thinking. So readily thinking is you're doing your own research by meeting people. You could be like brainstorming, and as well as using softwares that you can visualize whatever data you have without you relying on what is already there. Because if you are in different sectors, there are tools that are benchmarked to kind of assess that. So I would say that we don't need to solely rely on tech. It can fail us at a point. So if you need to do a presentation, you'll know that, okay, you need to have everything on site so that when tech fails you, you can fully be on board. So you need to be ready at all times. You don't need to rely on tech every time because it could fail. Imagining if we don't have internet the entire day in the whole world. Just imagine what could happen. So we should have a good balance so that whenever those moments come, we can meet up with it.
Okay, so having a good balance is so key. Yeah, so touching on the terms of digital platforms or content formats, which kind of platforms can you recommend for, to increase your global visibility and engagement?
Right. So I would say writing your own blog also helps. I used to blog, personal blog. So I do like a daily quotes that I write, and it was consistent. I built a community around it on WhatsApp at the time, mostly like a broadcast. I put the content there every time. So there were times that I wasn't doing it anymore. The audience I created kind of find out we don't receive this again. So you need to be consistent. If you're going on break too, you should let your audience also be aware. So typically using blogging, you can use WordPress to write your own blog. You can use Twitter, Facebook, any of those tools that you're already aware of, which you don't pay for. That could be a good way of telling a story and staying on top of things. You could also use mass media. You could write for any of the media houses. You can write as a columnist, because you want to communicate personal brand, something that you do consistently. Or it could also be through video. So YouTube is a great tool to also do that. If you are in the education field, you talk about EdTech. If you want to communicate what you do within that space, you set up a YouTube channel that would communicate that to other people. So I would say that the tools are enormous. You do research based on which one fits your need and your audience, and then you communicate that out. Personally, with my interests around policy and working with different groups of people as well as brands, I believe that reading a lot more about brands also would help you know how to be, in the face of people with whatever you're working on consistently. So consistent learning keeps you ahead of other brands.
Okay, so consistent learning keeps you ahead of other brands. So what about measuring the effects of your efforts? How does an organization or somebody who's doing this personally, how can they, the tangible, brand influence they are having? And then what's the time span you can give yourself in terms of rating those moments?
Right. So personal brand, your tangible. So let's say you run a workshop and you decide to impact people with the knowledge. How many people have you impacted with the knowledge? If it's about 50 people, you can count them. Then on the other side of M&E, you're monitoring whatever info. There are tools you can use Google Form to gather that information to know what they feel about that, about what the particular workshops you've done on that as well. That helps you be aware of what your challenges are based on whatever you presented, what you need to be worked on. So those are the two key things. You need to be aware of the tools, how to use them, the tangibles, the number of people you can count, the number of brands you can reach. And then the tools that you use at the back end, you see the algorithms. There's a dashboard that helps you analyze the info. So if you made a post today, it tells you the number of people you've reached. And this is knowledge that we can all get. If you're using the tools properly, you can tell that, okay, your post has reached a number of people, and this is what you need to do to reach more young people or more businesses that like what you do. You can also segment your post to reach a particular audience the entire time.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's keep our questions coming in. So this is from Miri. I hope I got your name correct. She's joining from South Africa, and she says very insightful. Thank you. Yeah, and then Mensa Richards said, thank you for your information. Someone says go prosper. And so we have so many interesting comments coming up. So let's keep our, questions and contributions in the chat box and to be well addressed. So, talking about artificial intelligence. You touched on that in the beginning of your presentation. Are there any specific applications of AI that you think is promising aside ChatGPT?
Yeah, so I know of, so there is this that I'm very much aware of. If you work in the law firm, so a friend runs a law firm, so they kind of have an AI that helps you skim information within that law firm. There's another one that have been plugged in. I'm trying to remember the name. That also helps you fish information. So if you are working in different sectors, now AI has been made easier for you to deploy that on whatever services you're working on for you to gather information. So ChatGPT level, now you can take that and put that on your system. So for instance, American Corner provides services for young people. You want to make sure that they don't struggle getting information. That AI could be called American Corner AI. That will be out there. So you ask any info, it helps you, simplify the information you need. So now, because AI has now been democratized, you can get access to it and plug that in onto whatever services that you have. So I would say it's specific to what you're doing, whatever sector. There are different tools within that you can actually extend to your learning experience. There are very complex ones that people wouldn't want to use, but the ones that are available, you make use of them.
Okay, so in terms of success stories, can you share with us any company or organization that has effectively used technology to embrace this global, brand, and what are the key strategies that they use to contribute to the success?
Right. So the first one I'll talk about. So I've done some work in the past, and I did some work with one organization. The goal is to primarily create tech opportunities for young people on the African continent. And creating a community requires that you go all out on the ground through your outreaches, and you partner with different institutions, telling them what the program will be for, the outcome for the individual participants. So connecting with different people on the continent, you're able to learn about how they perceive things, what they want to learn during the program. The goal was to train over 10,000 young people with tech tools, right? Those who want to do digital skills, those who want to do artificial intelligence, those who want to do anything that will solve problem immediately. The goal throughout the program was to keep the community growing. So consistently providing them with information that they need, consistently ensuring that their problems are being solved on time, consistently ensuring that feedback are received to make the process much easier. That has been the success story I've seen over the period that I've done that work with the organization. Personally, also looking at the nonprofit sector, you see the numbers are huge, and being able to meet different stakeholders, you want to make sure that they understand the impacts that you're making and they're able to project that. So I've seen different organizations that I've worked with communicating their brand to the audience openly, and the brand, the audience are able to receive the outcomes that are being shared with them, which is very important. So these are things that I have done. The scale of impact is great because you know that, okay, aside that you want to solve a problem, you are telling people what really it should be like. Now, I remember something I want to quickly add. So the ChatGPT tools, like I mentioned, there are different levels. So if it is education, there is one that is for that. If it is note-taking, there is one that is for that. I just remember that I used to use one. There's one called Firefly. When you are joining meetings, it joins the meeting. I'm sure you might have heard of that. It takes notes for you throughout the time. There's Otter something as well. It's also AI related. That takes information during the meeting as well. Yeah, I just thought I'll add that since I was hoping to get the name.
All right, thank you for just chipping that in. So just a quick one before we just wrap up. in terms of personalization, how do you stand out? For instance, if it's in the tech space, we have so many people moving with that same solution, in that space. How do you stand out and make sure that your brand does not just get sucked up with other brands?
Yeah, so I was recently having a conversation with a tech person. He provides tech solutions, financial tech, so fintech. And the goal was that because different tech startup want to be out there, they are unable to tell the story that people would resonate with. So you may have challenges around that, but as an individual, you need to understand that there are ways to get your brand out there. Focus on the audience that you're serving. Focus on the audience that you're serving, and make sure that you have the right team members to work with, because that keeps you in the frame of their mind. For instance, when Visa card, the debit card, their concept was to democratize getting access to finances. How do you send money to other people? They may have changed things a number of times to make sure that the experience you're having is seamless throughout. So if you are someone who is starting off as a startup or your social enterprise, you need to have a good balance with what you're providing, the service or the product you're providing, and also interface with your audience to know how you can improve on that the entire time. So you need to be aware of your audience needs and how to improve on that throughout the entire time that you're working.
Okay, thank you so much, Prosper. It's been an honor having you here to facilitate this session. Thank you for all the tips and thank you for all your contributions to our participants as well. So before we end today's program, I want to introduce you to an amazing online resource that you may find helpful. The eLibrary USA. The eLibrary USA is a state-of-the-art digital library with 9 premier electronic databases that include digital newspapers, magazines, journals, videos, and citations. So usually this resource is only available to use in person at our American spaces, but with the global pandemic, we are opening up access to this amazing resource. So if you are interested, sign up using the link that can be found in the comment section, and then that will be also addressed. So thank you so much. This program was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy Ghana in partnership with American Corner Boba and Mobile Web Ghana. So that concludes our program. Please follow us on YouTube, U.S. Embassy Ghana, to get more access to our virtual programs coming up. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bye.
Bye.